Hello and welcome to Pre-Calculus 2E. My name is Brian Taylor and I will be the instructor for this course. We are going to be using the textbook produced by OpenStax for Pre-Calculus 2E. It is an excellent text. It is free and open source, and I will have links to it in the show notes below. You can either view the text online or you can download a PDF of it, and I would strongly suggest having the text open while you go through my videos. I will not be going through every single example and every single problem. I will only be highlighting the things in each section that I believe are important. So let's just take a quick look at the table of contents to see what the course covers. The first chapter is all about functions and some of the terminology around functions, such as the difference between a function and a relation, the domain and range, and then various aspects of dealing with functions. The second chapter deals specifically with linear functions. You should probably have had a fair bit of experience already with linear functions, so this should be somewhat familiar to you. Then we move on to polynomial and rational functions. And again, you should probably already have had some exposure to quadratic functions and graphing quadratic functions, which are parabolas. Then we move on to exponential and logarithmic functions. And you may have had some exposure to this, but this will be a nice review if you have, and it will be new for you if you haven't had any exposure to it. After that, there is a number of chapters that cover trigonometric functions. So again, you should have probably already had some exposure to sine, cosine, and tangent. And for those of you, chapter 5 will be pretty much review. But then it moves on to extensions of sine, cosine, and tangent to sort of periodic functions in general. There'll be a large section or chapter on trigonometric identities and equations, which may seem perhaps a little bit too much for some of you, but it actually turns out to be quite important once you get into calculus, because a lot of calculus is writing things in a different way to make it a little easier to deal with. There is then another chapter on further applications of trigonometry. And then finally we move into chapter 9, which is systems of equations and inequalities, with a bit of an introduction to matrices and matrix operations. And then a chapter on analytic geometry, talking about the conic sections. So a circle is a conic section, as well as the ellipse, the hyperbola, and the parabola. Finally, we have a chapter on sequences, probability, and counting theory, sometimes called combinatorics, followed by a chapter which is essentially the first part of calculus itself. So finding limits, what is continuity, and then derivatives, which is kind of the first part of calculus itself. So I hope with each section to talk about some of the more important aspects and maybe introduce some of the concepts that I think are the most important to learn from those sections, but it is important to go through the textbook as well, because it will cover more than what I just cover in the videos. I will also try to go through some of the exercises at the end. In the online textbook, you'll find solutions to the even questions, and I will try to go through some of the odd questions and perhaps some of the harder ones too, so that you have something to work from there. I look forward to being your guide, essentially, to go through this. It is a very long textbook, as you can see. We're already up to almost 1,300 pages, but I think you will find it very rewarding and an excellent introduction to, or at least a good way to start your study of calculus.